Hey everybody, it's Anna and welcome back to my BookTube channel. Today I'm going to be doing the Get to Know My Taste book tag, which was created by Sam from Thoughts on Tomes and Mari from My Name is Marinez. I have been meaning to do something like this kind of as an introduction to my channel and a get to know me for a while, so I was really happy to see that this was created. I wasn't tagged by anybody specific, I just knew that I wanted to make this video. So let's go ahead and kind of talk about my taste and you'll get to know it a little bit better. So if you're new, this is probably going to be a lot of new stuff for you, and if you're not, I hope you learned something new about me. So let's do the first question. How do you rate books? Give a quick rundown of how you do your star ratings, or if you don't use star ratings, how you evaluate books. So for me, star ratings, books are the only thing that I use star ratings for, and that is purely because of Goodreads. I was a really early adopter of Goodreads, so I think that if I had started using Goodreads now, I probably wouldn't care about star ratings that much. But it's basically been like a useful visual shorthand for me. So if I go back and think to myself, I don't remember the details of that book, but how did I feel about reading it at the time? To me, that's what star ratings are for. They're just to help me remember how I felt about the book at the time I read it, what I think of it in terms of its quality. If I have a lot to say about it, like the star rating is not going to really capture all of that, which is why I prefer to review them a little bit more. But yeah, so let's go ahead. We'll start with the sort of like extremes here. So a 1-star rating is bad or offensive, so bad that I couldn't possibly recommend it. It's trash, it's garbage, I hate it. Very few books have actually gotten a true 1-star rating from me. 2 is that I still think that the book was bad or had significant problems and that I wouldn't recommend it. But I recognize that it is not quite sort of like below the basement level that a 1-star book is. So 2 is still not good. I wouldn't recommend it, but I can recognize that it was at least written, maybe decently, competently. It's not a total mess. 3 is like the good review for me. It's good, it's fine, it's really like competently made. I don't have a ton of complex thoughts about it one way or another, so it's kind of this was enjoyable for what it was, I'm moving on. I would recommend this to the right person, but not necessarily one of the all times or enthusiastic recommendations. 4 is I thought it was great. I thought that it did most, if not all things well in terms of its writing style, plot, character development, literary qualities that we kind of analyze our books for. A 4-star book I would have no problem recommending to most people, like the vast majority of people. And I think that's actually my most commonly given rating right now. I think that's my most commonly given rating right now, which to me just means that I've gotten pretty good at knowing my taste well enough to choose books that I think I'm gonna like a lot. And then 5 are for the like masterpieces, blew me away. I would recommend this to everybody, even if they wouldn't normally pick it up, because it's just that good that it should kind of override what your normal tastes are. Sort of the line between a 4 and a 5-star book can get a little bit hazy, because if I have a really strong emotional connection to a book that isn't perfect but is very close, that can be enough to bump it up from a 4 to a 5. So I'll be the first to admit this is pretty subjective, but this is also just me trying to remember how I felt about it and whether I would recommend it to somebody else. Number 2, how do you approach reviewing books? What's your review style? Are you analytical, emotional, casual, or structured? It really depends. I would say I'm primarily analytical when I review books. Some of that's because of my education and training. I did my degree in English and classical studies, so I'm really used to having to write about books and literature in an analytical sort of way. That's also kind of what I break down when I review or analyze a book, is a lot of the formal constraints of it, the quality of the writing, the quality of the plot and character development. But I mean, like, emotion is also such an important part of that, because you can have a book that's formally perfect, but if there was no emotional connection for me, I'm gonna have a hard time like recommending it unqualified. Like there are definitely books out there that I respect more than I like, so that's why I would say I tend more towards the analytical, because I will let you know that. But I do bring like my own sort of emotions and preference into what I do on YouTube here, for instance. Less so if I was doing like formal academic writing, but I haven't had to worry about that in quite some time. And am I casual or structured? Here on BookTube, pretty casual. I don't really script any of my BookTube videos. I will sometimes write down a little outline with notes. And so like, for instance, the video that I did that was 5 Reasons Why You Should Read Under the Sea Wind by Rachel Carson, I did have like bullet points for that. So that was a little more structured. But I do like to just free associate, and this is mostly just like what you see is how I talk. It's not scripted. Okay, number 3, what's the book that made you a reader? Whether it was your first favorite or the one that got you hooked, what book started it all? I don't think there's like one singular book, but I really remember starting to identify with being a reader at around the age of maybe 6 or 7. And I was obsessed with the Chronicles of Narnia at the time, and I also really loved the book Charlotte's Web. Both I still really love, and those were great sort of gateway stories for me, you know, moving on from kind of the picture book phase of my life to just developing my own taste in reading. Number 4, do you have a genre niche? Are there certain genres you gravitate toward, or do you read widely across genres? I do read pretty widely. I will read almost everything. Very few genres are completely off limits to me. Mostly I don't tend to read things like business, self-help, certain subgenres of romance. Like I'm not really a big fan of romantasy. But there are exceptions. You know, there's definitely a couple notable exceptions here. But I think I gravitate towards a lot of sci-fi, fantasy, speculative. I gravitate towards a lot of like nature writing about like political and identity related issues. I gravitate toward mysteries a lot too. I've gone through phases where I'm reading more or fewer mysteries in a year, but I definitely love that as a genre. But I'm not picky. I read like it's a buffet, and I am hungry and getting everything I possibly can. Number 5. Do you generally prefer character-driven or plot-driven stories? Books gotta have a little bit of both, but if I have to pick, I think I'm gonna go character-driven, because I don't like stories that are just plot and the characters are very flat and undeveloped. I can also read a book that has very little plot or very little action in the plot if the characters are well drawn enough and interesting enough that I want to find out more about them or how they think or feel or something like that. So I am not like a all vibes, nothing else reader, but I do think if I have to choose, it's character driven. Number 6, what's a book that you love so much that you don't care if others don't like it? What's that one book you love enough for everyone? This one and the next question are kind of hard for me to answer. And I think that's because I don't really think that much about what other people are saying about like the books that I feel positively about. Like if I like it, I like it, and that's enough for me. Maybe some of my favorite classics. So like maybe some of my favorite like Shakespeare plays, or I think Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen is kind of my like underrated classical fave, because a lot of people know about stuff like Pride and Prejudice, but have they read her other books? Maybe not. That one's really good for me. But it's hard for me to answer this, because if I love a book, I just love it, regardless of whether it's for everyone or not. Number 7, what's a book you love so much that if someone doesn't like it, you know your reading tastes don't align? The book or books where a difference of opinion is a strong indicator of different reading preferences. Again, because I read so much, I'm going to kind of answer this question a little bit of the opposite. What's a book if someone else likes it a lot and that's like most of what they read or the only thing that they read? That's a strong indicator our preferences don't match, because I do read a lot of different stuff. If someone is mostly just reading like Court of Thorns and Roses, Fourth Wing, the sort of like romantasy type books, I don't tend to really gravitate towards those. I don't like a lot of them. So if that's most of what you're reading, we're probably not gonna have a lot in common in terms of our reading tastes. If you are just reading just pure horror or thriller, or like lots of slashery stuff that's really gory, we probably won't overlap a lot. But again, I really think that the lack of overlap is not due to a specific book or genre. It's just that because I read so widely, if you read more specifically within a certain genre that I don't tend to gravitate towards, our tastes are probably not going to overlap. But again, I mean, I can even think of like booktubers and friends who are exceptions to that, like Joanna from Me, My Dog, and Books. She reads a lot of horror thriller type books that are not really my cup of tea, but she reads enough other things too that I would still say our tastes are pretty similar, even though I don't read a lot of the horror thriller genre necessarily, because we look for similar things in stories. So it's really easy to have a book in common with me. It is not that hard. Number 8, what's in your trash pocket? What books, tropes, or themes that you know are bad, but you love them anyway? So I think this question is kind of trying to ask about guilty pleasures, and I don't really have guilty pleasures because I don't think it makes sense for me to feel guilty about like what I read. And I feel like my last sort of hang up on this was like getting into reading romance books and then being like, these are amazing. I'm not going to feel bad about reading them when I started getting into the genre a few years ago. I would say that like probably some of the stuff that like would fly more so in a book that wouldn't fly in real life for me. So there's definitely some things that people do in romance novels that are like dramatic or over the top that I would absolutely hate if that was how someone was behaving towards me in real life, but that's enjoyable in a book. And maybe in mysteries, like a lot of cozy mysteries, which I read, have like the amateur sleuth in a romance or a relationship with like a cop or some other type of law enforcement person. And generally speaking, I am not a fan of law enforcement. I have too many political and philosophical issues with the way the police are run, particularly in the United States. But I can kind of suspend my disbelief enough for a cozy mystery to be like, okay, we're gonna just like let this slide a little bit because it is, you know, for better or worse, a genre trope. Number 9, do you have any deal breakers in books? Something that, if present, immediately turns you off from a book. A lot of ableism, or like fat shaming, or homophobia, or racism, if it goes unchallenged. Sometimes even if it is challenged in the book, I just can't like keep reading it because certain things hit too close to home. Same thing for like a lot of graphic violence or a lot of detail on things like, you know, sexual assault or abuse. That's just not something that I can really stick with a book reading. Most of the time when I DNF books, it isn't purely for content, but when I am thinking about books that I had either major asterisks next to recently when I reviewed them or that I DNF'd, the two most recent ones, one was for just like unrepentant, unrelenting fat shaming or equating fatness with like being evil or lazy, and then ableism, just like the ableism is so bad, y'all, especially if you like to read mysteries or horror, which I do. It's everywhere, and it is sort of changing and getting better, but that is still a major turnoff to me in a book. So please get more creative if you write mystery or horror when you need to depict somebody as being evil, and don't do it in a way that is falling into an ableist trope. Number 10. What's a strong opinion you have about a book released within the last year, whether it's overrated, underrated, or just a take you need to share? Oh boy, I have not reviewed this yet on my channel, but I will, and my hot take on this is that Catabasis by R.F. Kuang is bad. It is very unimaginative fantasy. If you have read her other novels, you basically like have already read this book. It's just kind of what would happen if you had a really smart person decide that they wanted to write a novel where they self-insert themselves and their husband into Dante's Inferno fan fiction and then just show off random things that they've read throughout the whole thing without paying attention to developing an interesting plot or fantasy that needs to be explored or characters that I could care about. That book is so overrated. It was not good. Stay tuned if you want to hear more of my thoughts about that, because there will be a review coming. Number 11, what do you look for in writing? What makes a book stand out to you? Is it prose style, themes, voice, structure, or something else? Kind of a little bit of those things. I mean, I definitely have themes that I gravitate towards, especially in nonfiction, but in fiction as well. I like to read about nature, queerness, disability, different other things. I like to read sentences that feel musical, and that is a kind of subjective thing, but because I write poetry and I make music, I am a person that really appreciates a very lyrical and rhythmic sentence, something that has a good rhythm to it, something that has like an unusual word that has a cool texture or like an interesting sound to it. I also really love themes of stuff like, you know, found family, characters digging deep within themselves to find strength that they didn't know they had. Really, if it just makes me think about what art can do differently, or if it makes me connect with others or with the world around me in a way that I hadn't considered before, or deepens a connection I already do have, then that's what really makes a book stand out to me. How do you decide what to read next? Do you plan ahead, mood read, or follow external factors such as hype, recommendations, or arcs? I actually just made a video about how I choose what to read next, but to keep it pretty brief, mostly I read by mood. If I am participating in an event like when I do Disability Readathon, Shake Temper, Queer Lit Readathon, I will usually set myself a TBR or a pile of possibilities for that, just so I can kind of focus my reading and figure out what I have available to choose from. But the only things that are really set in terms of planning ahead are the books that I read for my book club, because I do not choose those books, the book club organizer does. But for the most part, it's just what am I in the mood to read, and I pick from my library books or the books that I've bought that go along with my interests. Number 13, where do you get inspiration for your BookTube content? What sparks your video ideas? Other creators, trends, personal reading experiences? I would say trends less so. I just don't have fun making those type of videos, generally speaking, or it's a trend that I'm not interested in, so I'm not going to go out of my way to make a video following it. I will make videos that are kind of responding to things that I have seen other people talk about or that I am interested in doing communally with them. Particularly if I read a book that another booktuber has recommended, like that then does influence my desire to talk about it, because the community aspect of BookTube is a big part of it. It's important to me. And then personal reading experiences is what I would say the most. So like, I mostly want to gush about books that I love. I had a couple of like book roast type videos that I used to make back in the day. I don't really do that anymore, mostly because I just think that like making something that is a dedicated negative review video for a book just feels kind of gross to me. Not because I don't think certain books are deserving of negative reviews, they absolutely are, but more because it's a function of the way that the internet works, that will tend to get amplified and the message will be lost in the negativity. The content of the critique is not going to stand out because people will just take away the negative and not what I actually had to say about it. So I guess because I've now been on this platform for, 7 years now, I am kind of influenced by my own previous experiences in what I've made. I used to do a lot more reading vlogs. Those were a lot of fun. I just have found myself less interested in like recording the more mundane, everyday parts of my life now, either because they're not really in situations where I can record them or it would be appropriate for me to do so, and then I'm just like not doing anything that interesting otherwise. So yeah, basically just my own brain and my own thoughts is what inspires me, and then BookTube events. 14, if you could make any book go viral right now, what would it be? A book you think deserves more attention and why? So I think that we have a couple books for here. Let me just make sure I get the author names correct. The first one of these is Undrowned, Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals by Alexis Pauline Gumbs. This is one of the best books I have ever read, and I see almost nobody talking about it ever. It's part of the Emergent Strategies series that Adrienne Marie Brown curates and I think edits. And it is just exactly what it says. It is nature writing. It is about Black feminism, marine animals. If you are a braiding sweetgrass fan, you need to read Undrowned because honestly, like, it's just going to tick a lot of the same boxes for you, I think. It is an absolutely incredible book. I need to reread it over and over again. And more people need to read that, period. I also think that the book How to Keep House While Drowning, which is by, let's see, Casey Davis, needs to go viral. I think it maybe is more well known among the disability community because it is specifically written for people with certain disabilities or like neurodivergencies in mind, but the subtitle is A Gentle Approach to Cleaning and Organizing. This is like really the only housekeeping and how to take care of your space book that you will ever need, and it is the only one that I really recommend because it actually has practical, useful, and like consistently helpful tips on how to do this, particularly if you are neurodivergent or disabled and you just need to get through stuff like doing your dishes without feeling a whole bunch of shame about it. It's a great book. It's really short. So is Undrowned, honestly. Like, just dip in and out of them, read them. Both of those books, I think, need to go viral. And last but not least, 15, who are some booktubers with reading tastes similar to yours? So I have to say that there are a fair number of people that I would have included on this list whose channels are not really actively posting anymore, so I'm going to try and mostly say people who are still pretty active on BookTube. I do think that Sam, Thoughts on Tomes, who's one of the creators of this tag, has pretty similar taste to me. A lot of my favorite books are books that I got recommended from her, so she also does a lot of like dark fantasy, gothic novels, speculative queer fiction, that kind of thing. Obviously Alina from Eclectic Reads, who is like my best BookTube buddy ever. She and I have similar eclectic tastes, but also similar tastes even with like the diversity between our two reading lists. Allie from A Genteel Black Hole, who is a new BookTube friend of mine as of this calendar year, I feel like. I have been following Allie's channel for just under a year, which is nuts because I feel like we have so much in common in terms of what we read. So yeah, go ahead and follow him if you like my channel. I'm going to obviously link everybody as well. Kathy from Kathy Trithert, the channel, who does the Queer Lit Readathon. We have very similar tastes. I think Angela from Literature Science Alliance. Robert G. Reader of Books, his name is Robert. Cece from Problems of a Book Nerd. Cece and I have very like overlapping tastes in queer literature, and I started reading a lot of queer literature at around the same time that she started her channel and got a lot of really good recommendations from her, and she does like reading vlogs and stuff like that now that I find really creative. Jen Campbell as well. Jen's channel is great. She is another channel I have been watching for a really long time and is also one of the few people that is still like posting from back when I first joined BookTube. So I think that's a good place to get started, but yeah, definitely check out these channels that I have mentioned. Like I said, I will link them below. A lot of people that I follow have already done this tag, but if you haven't and you would like to, please do. It's really worth it. I think the idea is that this is a tag designed to help us like be able to find new booktubers to watch that isn't just the BookTube newbie tag, because let's be real, I'm not a newbie. I've been doing this for 7 years. Most of the people that I have seen who have done this tag too are not newbies either. We just want to do this and find like new booktubers to watch. So please do it. Tag me if you do. Thank you all as always so very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.